Welcome to day 11 of the 28 days of self-love. We're moving from owning your voice in uncomfortable situations and learning how to speak up and into what we are actually using our voice to do. Something that it's important for us to use our voice for, but it is a little bit scary, and it's something, we hear all about, but it is really hard to do when you're first getting over that initial hump. I did not wear this shirt for no reason. Full coincidence, 100%, honestly. I slept in it, so... But I was like, wait, I have to wear this for this episode because today we're talking about setting boundaries without guilt, how to protect your peace unapologetically. I would say a time that comes to mind when I was not setting boundaries. I had this family member that always wanted me to go sit with them, and it was like in this like secluded room that like they were just like, if they were like getting stuff done or whatever the situation was, but it always had to be like away from the rest of the group. And it was always for them to talk shit, whether it was to say stuff that like about my life that made me feel bad, or it was to say stuff about people that I didn't like and I didn't want to talk about. And it just like, no matter what, I felt uncomfortable, and I was always like having to practice my standing up for myself skills and like saying how I actually felt and all this stuff. And but I never wanted to go out there, and I was always so fucking angry that I would let myself go out there. And every single time I was back in the same situation, I would say I'm going there, and I'm not going to go with that person. I'm not going to go with that person. I'm not going to go with that person when they asked me, because inevitably they would ask me every single time, and every single time I was too scared of their opinion of me, of them not liking me, of me seeming like a bitch. And so I would go do it anyways. I would go with them anyways. It would be like I was hyping myself up the whole time, and then they would be like, Sarah, let's go. And I'd be like, oh, fuck. Okay, here I go. I'm going to kill myself. And then eventually, because I put the intention towards it, I was able to start setting a boundary. At first, it didn't look as I had pictured it in my head that whole time, but the first time I started to do it, it was hesitation. It was, Sarah, come on. Okay, I'll go, but that hesitation was part of my journey towards eventually being able to set the boundary. And, that hesitation turned into, I have to go to the bathroom, and I would like run in a different direction. And then soon enough, I was able to say, you know what, actually, I'm going to stay around here. I'm going to stick with this person. Oh, I'm in the middle of this conversation. Oh, actually, I was planning on heading this way. Sorry, or whatever. And then, eventually being able to say, nah, you get my point. Eventually being able to just say like, no, I'm not going to go out there. I'm not going to do this with you. And the whole world didn't crumble. The whole world didn't fall apart. And they just went with somebody else, and it was fine. And I was happy, and my mood got to continue, and I wasn't, fucking irritated the rest of I can't believe they said this, this, and this, and this. So setting the boundary was really a means of me protecting my peace, and it was more important for me to keep a peaceful mentality than to make sure that somebody else liked me. And so it really started me in the right direction to be able to set boundaries in all areas. And I think the biggest thing that I learned is that setting boundaries is not confrontational. Like I used to think that it was like this big blowout, and it's not like that. It's easy, and you're just talking normal, and it really isn't as big of a deal as I was making it in my head. So let's get talking about it. Like, let's figure out how to get to this point. I want to start by understanding why we feel guilty when we set boundaries, because if we get real clear on where that guilt is coming from, it makes it a lot easier to invalidate the guilt and then be able to set the boundary without it. Society conditions us to be nice and accommodating, especially women. Like, we are bred to be nice and give you whatever you want, and you don't be rude and include everybody and all of these things, you know what I mean? And if you say something that kind of goes against the grain or that doesn't do what somebody else wants you to do, you can be perceived as a bitch. You can, it's just, it doesn't follow that society narrative. So by instinct, you feel that guilt right away because it's just like the bare minimum of what we're being taught the opposite of. It's like you're worried about feeling rude or selfish or difficult. It's this fear of disappointing other people. You might have guilt from past experiences. Like if you've spent your life being a people pleaser and this fully goes against that mentality, you're going to feel the guilt of your regular people pleasing habits being challenged. And there's this like belief that love means sacrifice, like that I'm supposed to sacrifice myself and my feelings in order to prove to you that you mean something to me, that I love you. But in reality, love is mutual respect and taking each other's feelings into accommodation and being empathetic towards one another. Okay, I get that I don't have to feel guilty. I get that, I should step into my own and do what it is I want and not live for other people. I should live for myself. But all of that seems more, just kind of the typical self-improvement. Like, what does setting boundaries have to do with self-love? That seems external and self-love is internal. You're 100% correct. And what's going on internally when you don't set those boundaries? One thing I know that happens to me is my cup is fully drained, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you are not setting your boundaries, you are draining your mental and emotional energy. You're not setting the standard of how to treat you. You're allowing people to just treat you however they see fit, and you have no say in it, and people learn how they can treat you. And a lot of the time when, that habit continues, you get stuck with these people that are benefiting off of your lack of backbone, dare I say, and know that they can push you around and get you to do whatever they want, and they can control the situation. And, obviously you walk away and you think, God, I haven't done anything I want. I feel disrespected. I feel invalued, and it doesn't feel good. It does not help your self-love. Boundaries help you put yourself first, to choose you first. And that's not a selfish thing. It's an act of self-respect. When you set the boundaries, you are demanding respect for yourself. You're gaining respect for yourself. You're showing other people that they should respect you. And all of that contributes to your ability to allow yourself to feel love for yourself. And because you do set boundaries, you don't get stuck with those people that think they can walk all over you and control all the situations. And so you therefore cultivate healthy relationships that make you feel good and supported, and like you have like-minded people with you, and you're not dealing with toxicity and drama and all of this other stuff, because you naturally have people in your life that respect you and love you. And it makes it that much easier when you have good people in your life to love yourself, because nothing drains your self-love more than a toxic relationship. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. How the hell are we going to set boundaries and not feel guilty? The very first thing is shifting your mindset. You have to reframe the way you think about setting boundaries. This is in correlation to what I said at the beginning, that I used to think that boundary setting was like this big confrontation. Like I thought it was aggressive and angry, and people were going to, cause problems. Like I was starting a fight essentially, and I am not a fighter. So like I didn't want to start fights with people. I just was wanting to say that, hey, I don't like that. You know what I mean? But I'm assuming people are going to like retaliate and get really upset. But once I was able to, first of all, I learned this lesson by doing it first and just learning that that's not what happens ever. And the truth is that now I was able to shift my mindset. If I could go back, I would shift the mindset first and then do it. So I would like to shift your mindset from, this is coming from a place of love. It's not something that is so, angry and an act of rejection. It's an act of love. I love you and I want to share with you more about me so that you can understand me better and I can be loved better. And it's an act of love for myself. It's not me being confrontational. It's me making sure that I'm caring for me and my peace. Another good way to work on this is practicing saying no without giving an explanation. A lot of the time when you're new to setting boundaries or you don't set boundaries, every single time you say no, you think you owe everybody this like lengthy explanation as to why, or even if it's not lengthy, it's just an explanation. You can find yourself, making up lies and excuses like, oh, sorry, I'm sick, like because you're trying to get out of it, when you don't have to do that. Like, you are allowed to say no, and that doesn't make you a bitch. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you unlikable. You just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't make it today. Thank you for the invite. It's not that serious. And like, if somebody, like, think about the fact that if somebody turned around and had a problem with that, they're weird as hell. They're weird as fuck. And you shouldn't have, it'll just be like a red flag to like, oh, okay, that's not a relationship that I want to be close with anyways, a person I want to be close with anyways. So now I don't really care what they think of me because I'm not worried about the friendship. Now, if it's somebody that you do really care about the relationship, that opens up a door to conversation, communication, and therefore a deeper connection and deeper relationship in that regard. Anytime you've ever fought with somebody, always think about, every time you fought with somebody, you get closer with them at the end once you come to a resolution. So it allows either a deeper connection if they got upset with you, or it allows you to see what relationships you don't want in your life. Either way, you have something good going for you. But the bottom line is you don't owe anybody an explanation when you say no. So being able to practice it, even in tiny situations, to be able to say no and not over explain is super helpful in order to get yourself on the right track to set boundaries. In that same vein, like I said, start small, like start in situations that are very low stakes. Saying no to somebody suggesting a certain restaurant. No, I don't think I want to go to that one. Maybe we could go to this one instead. And, it being something that people aren't going to get mad at you for suggesting a different restaurant, that it makes it a little bit more low pressure, but you're practicing the act of doing it. You're practicing what that feels like. You're practicing getting over that fear and the anxiety, and you're learning that other people don't freak out and lose their mind and hate you, but you're also learning how to tell yourself that you're going to do something, and then when you follow through with it, just like another person out in your life, you're building that trust with yourself. You know that when you set out to do it, you accomplished it and it was all okay and you had your back and you had everything under control and you were fully capable. You're learning to trust yourself. And if you've got to do that in small areas until you can work up to doing it in bigger ones, then do that. I want to tell you to expect pushback. Because even though, like, I'm telling you that it's not normally that bad, and it's not, it's, if you go in kind of with the idea that you're going to have pushback, especially from these relationships that were maybe benefiting off of your lack of pushback in the past, it's possible they'll be caught off guard when you first start to do it, and they will try to push back. Expect that and plan for it, and kind of have a couple back pocket statements that you have so that you can, be prepared. You're not flailing to try to get through the situation, and it would make it easier when that doesn't typically happen. You'll be pleasantly surprised. But I would rather be over prepared than under prepared and upset at how it plays out. However, even if it plays out in the way that they push back and you aren't prepared and you're flailing and you're frantic and it doesn't go the way that you pictured in your head, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the practice, and you'll be able to take that experience and not judge yourself and be angry at yourself for it, but learn from it and ask yourself what you would rather have liked to have done instead. Ask yourself what it was that caused you to flail and be frantic, or whatever, it freeze, fight, whatever your reaction is, and be able to move forward from there in future situations to try to do something a little bit differently in order to fix that. what you don't like. We all know the biggest way to really get shit done is to remember your why. So remember why you are setting the boundary. I am setting this boundary because every time I put myself in this situation, I feel like shit. I end up angry. I end up ruminating. I end up arguing with other people. It never is good. I just want to protect my peace. And that's why I want to do this. And so you can obviously come up with the why in per your specific scenario. But if you need a general why, let me give you one. Protecting your peace matters more than temporary discomfort. It could be inevitable that you will feel uncomfortable, especially doing this the first few times that you do it. And that discomfort is that sacrifice of to have discomfort is worth it in order to make sure that you don't have all those other shitty feelings that you're used to having when you don't set your boundary. At least in my opinion, I would rather feel a little bit uncomfortable doing it and feel proud of myself afterwards than to not do it, not feel proud of myself, diminish my self-trust, therefore diminishing my self-love, and also dealing with all of the shit that I didn't set the boundary and everything that emotion and feeling are connected to with the specific scenario. It's so much to deal with. So I would rather deal with this discomfort than this discomfort. All right, kids, we're locking it in. You can listen to me talk about this topic, and I hope something resonated with you that will take you into the future and be able to set boundaries. But the way that you can really make it happen in your life is by doing these 2 steps: the daily action challenge and your daily self-love journaling prompt. What they're going to do is give you a little bit of action for you to remember and know what this feels like in your own body, in your own life, and in the scenarios that it's going to come up in the future, you'll remember this action that you took and that you are capable of continuing on this path and doing these practices when they really come up and are really important. And then the journaling prompt is important for slowing yourself down, gaining some introspection, and knowing that why it is that you behave the way that you do and how you would like to show up so that you can act more in alignment with that. So today's daily challenge is set one boundary today, whether it's saying no, leaving a conversation that drains you, or protecting your time. There should be some sort of situation that allows you to set a boundary, and that will also show you the ways that you can set them in small ways and the ways that it's not about a big drama. It's not about a big fight or issue or challenge. It's in these small ways, and that it really helps you show up for yourself and love yourself. Now, your journaling prompt is: when was the last time you felt guilty for setting a boundary? How can you reframe that guilt as self-love? So just being able to reflect on, when you weren't willing to set that boundary because you felt afraid, you felt guilty, you felt like you were afraid somebody would not like you if that was your situation, and how can you start to reframe that into an act of self-love? Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines to let people in, to let people know you, to help people understand you so that you can really cultivate these strong, meaningful, deep relationships with other people. They are also a means of you being able to show up as your best self, a self that you feel fully proud of and that you absolutely love. Tomorrow, we are talking about balancing self-love and partnership, how you can make sure that you are showing up for yourself while you're in a relationship. Make sure you practice setting one boundary today and pay attention to the way it makes you feel. If it's accessible for you to share online, I would love to see it. I would love to cheer you on. That or what you discover from your journaling prompt, tag me at Wellish Podcast, at Sarah.Rittendale, or use the hashtag 28 days of self-love. If you have not yet, make sure to subscribe to Wellish wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube so that you do not miss one more day of the 28 days of self-love. Thank you endlessly for being here, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.